May 29, 1453. A silent dawn would change the destiny of the world. The walls that had stood for more than 1,000 years were about to face the greatest challenge in their history. Constantinople, the last heir of the Roman Empire, was surrounded. On the other side stood a young ruler determined to transform his empire into a global power. What happened that day was not just the fall of a city, it was the end of an era. It was the birth of a new world order. Founded as Byzantium and rebuilt by Emperor Constantine in the 4th century, Constantinople became the heart of the Eastern Roman Empire. Located between Europe and Asia, it controlled vital trade routes. Its walls, especially the Theodosian walls, were considered nearly unbreakable. For centuries, armies attempted to cross them, all failed. In the heart of the world, where continents collided, stood a city of legends, Constantinople. For over a millennium, it was the jewel of the Byzantine Empire, a beacon of civilization. Its strategic position, commanding the Bosphorus Strait, made it the gateway between Europe and Asia, the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. This was the center of global trade, where silks, spices, and treasures from the East met the goods of the West. Its markets overflowed with unimaginable wealth, and its walls guarded not just an empire, but a legacy. The city was a treasure trove of culture and faith, home to countless relics and magnificent churches, and at its heart stood the Hagia Sophia, a marvel of engineering and a testament to imperial power, its dome reaching towards the heavens as if blessed by God himself. But the golden age was fading. The once mighty Byzantine Empire was a shadow of its former self, torn apart by internal power struggles and civil wars. Decades of conflict had drained its coffers and weakened its leadership. One by one, its territories were stripped away, leaving Constantinople as an isolated island in a sea of rivals. Economic crises crippled the city, its population dwindled, and its formidable defenses began to crumble from neglect. The empire, once a world power, now survived on the mercy of Western European states, its very existence hanging by a thread, dependent on foreign soldiers and fleets for its defense. The Queen of Cities was vulnerable, and a new, ambitious power was rising in the east. Across the water, a young sultan ascended the Ottoman throne. In the heart of the Ottoman Empire, a prince was being forged unlike any other. This was Mehmed, a boy destined for greatness, yet whose early life was steeped in complexity and challenge. His education was formidable. By the time he was a young man, he was fluent in multiple languages, not just the tongues of diplomacy and war, but of poetry and science. He devoured ancient histories, studying the campaigns of Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar. Seeing himself as their successor, his first taste of power was fleeting. Placed on the throne as a teenager, he was soon forced to abdicate in favor of his father, a public humiliation that would burn within him for years. When he finally ascended for the second permanent time, he was no longer a boy. He was a man hardened by intrigue, surrounded by vipers in his own court. Powerful figures like the Grand Vizier, Under el-Halil Pasha, saw him as an impetuous youth to be controlled. The elite Janissaries, the heart of the Ottoman army, tested his authority at every turn. But Mehmed was no one's puppet. He moved with cold, calculated precision, consolidating his power, outmaneuvering his rivals, and making it clear that his will was absolute. Every political maneuver, every enemy crushed, served a single, all-consuming obsession that had burned in his soul since childhood. Constantinople, an obsession that had taken root in his soul since childhood. The conquest of Constantinople. To Mehmed, the city wasn't just a strategic prize, it was the validation of his entire existence, the symbol of the world's greatest empire. He would claim it, or die trying. The world would soon learn the name Mehmed the Conqueror. Mehmed II was no ordinary ruler. He was a man of immense intellect, ambition, and singular focus. From his youth he was obsessed with one goal, the conquest of Constantinople. He studied ancient military tactics and modern technology, preparing meticulously for the campaign that would define his reign. As a bold statement of intent, he ordered the construction of the Rumeli Hisari fortress on the European side of the Bosphorus, directly opposite an existing Ottoman fort. This move effectively seized control of the strait, cutting off Constantinople from any potential aid from the Black Sea. Mehmed knew that to breach the city's legendary Theodosian walls, he needed a new kind of weapon. He commissioned the engineer Orban to forge monstrous cannons, larger than any the world had ever seen, capable of hurling massive stone balls to shatter fortifications that had stood for 1,000 years. The stage was set for an epic confrontation. The siege began in April 1453. The Ottoman strategy was a masterful combination of land and sea power. A massive army, numbering in the tens of thousands, surrounded the city's land walls, while a formidable fleet blockaded its shores. Inside, Emperor Constantine XI Paleologos, the last Roman emperor, prepared for a heroic last stand. With a small, determined force of Byzantine soldiers and foreign volunteers, he vowed to defend the city to the last man. The citizens themselves, from nobles to commoners, joined the resistance, tirelessly repairing walls battered by the Ottoman cannons. Their most ingenious defense was a massive iron chain stretched across the mouth of the Golden Horn, the city's natural harbor, preventing the Ottoman fleet from attacking its weaker sea walls. But Mehmed II was a master of unconventional warfare. Faced with the impassable chain, he conceived a plan of breathtaking audacity. He ordered his men to construct a greased wooden road over the hills of Galata in a single night under the cover of darkness. His forces physically dragged dozens of warships overland, bypassing the chain and launching them directly into the Golden Horn. The sight of Ottoman ships suddenly appearing in their protected harbor was a devastating psychological blow to the defenders. Their morale plummeted as they realized the sheer determination of their enemy. With the city now besieged from all sides, Mehmed intensified the assault. The constant thunderous roar of the great cannons became the city's death knell as the final, decisive attack loomed. By the 15th century, the empire was no longer the giant it once had been. Its territory had drastically shrunk. Essentially, only Constantinople and a few isolated regions remained. Surrounded by rivals and with limited resources, the empire struggled to survive. On the other side stood Mehmed II, determined and strategic. His goal was clear: transform Constantinople into the new capital of his empire. He studied military tactics, strengthened his forces, and prepared something that would change siege warfare forever: massive cannons capable of shaking thousand-year-old walls. In April 1453, the siege began. The city was isolated. Ships blocked access by sea, while land forces surrounded the walls. The cannons began their daily bombardment, shaking structures that had endured for centuries. In a surprising move, ships were transported over land, bypassing the barrier that protected the harbor. The city realized the siege had reached a new level. Pressure increased with each passing day. Before sunrise, the final offensive began. Successive waves advanced toward the walls. After weeks of resistance, a breach was opened. Emperor Constantine XI remained in the city until the final moments, becoming a lasting symbol of resistance. With the fall of Constantinople, the Eastern Roman Empire came to its definitive end. The city became the new Ottoman capital, later known as Istanbul. The event symbolically marked the close of the Middle Ages and triggered profound transformations across Europe. Scholars migrated westward, contributing to the Renaissance. New trade routes were sought, paving the way for the age of exploration. The fall of Constantinople was not just the story of a siege. It was the moment the medieval world gave way to modernity. A city fell, but a new era began.